Okay, Sam Chortek's 2016, October 18th, Jimmy Chappie with him, Beaver Utah Black Mountain Drone UFO was a bug. Now, the immediate critiquing of this is going to be pretty minimal. Obviously, there's only going to be a few people talking about it. I'm going to critique people's analysis of it. Well, it has to be CG, or it has to be a spaceship, or no. It is a bug. Presumptions. You can't have them. If you have a presumption that you know what you're looking at from the sound of my voice, and this appearance, what is it that I'm sitting in? Exactly what is it? Not what is it made of and blah blah blah. The exact item it is. No? Then how do you know it's a spaceship from another planet run by aliens instead of a damn bug or some other aircraft? I'm going to give the rest of the information because I'm going to give the tells that this is a phony set of assertions by the people who uploaded the video. I don't think they faked the video with CG. That's a misnomer or a wild goose or chaser. Fastest bug I've ever seen. It's either CG fraud or it has some type of aircraft. Anyone with eyes can see it's moving insanely fast. Wrong. You're presuming it has to be an aircraft. You're not looking at what it is. So I'll do that for you by explaining it to you. Spoken word photography. As it goes from a tiny dot, it actually dips behind a distant mountain for a moment. No, it doesn't. You're not watching it frame by frame. There is a video, the original raw video apparently, downloadable from a Google download drive thing. And that's nice. The trouble with it is it expends a lot of time making sure there's a large setup for it instead of just looking at something simple. But yeah, you can still grab it, but they made sure that it's really hard to download. Hit the download button. It doesn't work most of the time. I had to force it to give me the file. It works as a pseudo YouTube video, even though it's a different file setup, and it will download. It zips past the drone all in about a second. No bird or bug can move that fast. There are swifts that move faster. They can pass in front of the camera very closely, and you won't even see anything. The camera will not capture it, for the same reason that the flash from a gun being fired at night may not be visible. And we're not going to talk about Planck's constant and Planck units. So let's see. So far, I've seen videos analyzing from three different people saying it's an object unknown origin. No, they're saying it's a flying saucer. They're not saying it's unknown origin. Unknown origin running at 90,000 miles per hour. Why? Why is that the estimate? If it's at 90,000 miles an hour, it would make a supersonic boom. Is that why they cut out the audio? Oh, you heard a supersonic boom that day but didn't review the video until later? How about this? Did any of you acknowledge that on the map that I put up, they didn't put up the location they did this at, there's a house nearby? Did the house have a security camera? Did it happen to point that way because that's where the roads are? Did anybody bother looking to see if any other corroborating audio and video recording was made? How about anywhere nearby that might be a traffic cam that has audio ability, or a webcam, weather cam with audio capability, with a web page that shows no audio or visual evidence of anything larger than a bug, and actually shows lots of bugs doing the same thing past the camera at night because there's a light on it? The other Falcon, and now you're saying it's a bug. Yes, it's a bug because it's the most likely scenario. That's like the person saying, well, there's no evidence one way or another of something happening, but there's the most likely scenario, which is pretty ordinary and boring, for some incident that happened in Pueblo, Colorado, or it's aliens. One of them has literally no substantiation to it and is always backed up by people saying, well, we need disclosure about these aliens, because there's never been any evidence of it. So they want the government to give them evidence of something they say the government's covering up. You create an impossible task for me. You know, I'm supposed to prove my love. I'm not saying it's an alien aircraft. Bullshit, of course you are. Because if it's not an alien aircraft, it would be a missile flying by, a very fast drone, or a bug really close to the camera with a big depth of field. Was this or was this not a camera on the drone that's designed to have extreme depth of field so it doesn't have to focus, like, let's say, a GoPro that was run through a flattening filter? The reason the GoPro camera has that wraparound effect isn't just to create a GoPro effect. It's so that it has a huge depth of field. Huge. Otherwise you have to focus the thing. You have to set a focal distance, which means some things won't be in focus. After you take your GoPro video, you put it into a program to get rid of the distortion. Or maybe not. Maybe everybody should look that up before they comment next. I couldn't find a better analysis for my son's 5th grade class than this. My analysis was, what is the most likely thing to cause a fast-moving object to do this? This video is being recorded at a particular frame rate. I think I can bring it up on screen. I'm not sure. Settings, video, 30 frames a second. I'm at 30 frames a second, but YouTube videos suck. This is my finger moving at less than a mile an hour directly in front of the camera at 3 or 4 feet. If I get back this far and I do the same speed, you can actually see my hand. You can see it in maybe a couple of frames. Frame rate is based on how long something is in frame. In 3 frames, it goes from up here in the video to here to here. That's 1/10 of a second to traverse this distance with a really broad blur. That's not 9,000 miles an hour. Okay, I'll do the reveal on what the other critiques are. Thanks for muddying the water even more. Fucking kidding me? No, I'm presenting the most likely answer and you're ignoring it because it isn't aliens. You won't... UFO hunters that won't acknowledge they're looking for UFOs and ignoring non-UFO evidence. Just stop lying to yourself. If I'm trying to convince myself that a girl in high school was really attracted to me, I'm not going to listen to her tell me, oh, well, no, I wasn't. No, I'm just kidding. That's bullshit. But that's what you sound like. Maybe the UFOs don't like you that way. So anyway, so the segment early in the video of the object appearing to dip below the ridgeline briefly before reappearing and moving closer to camera is what? Seriously, curiously. I have to see, because the person said, this is copyright, I'm going to sue you. Of course they're going to take down my video because it's critical. I love mispronouncing words sometimes. I have a video up that's critical of their assertion. If I make a video that gets any traction, they'll flag it. You know that and I know that. That's why I did single frames. In order to do an analysis, they would have to overtly state that they will give me $100,000 if they flag my account, or if it is ever flagged on any account of any kind, because the other trick is to flag some unrelated video. This isn't my first rodeo. However, I can put it up where nobody can take it down and have you link to it. Okay, here's the reveal. All 3 of these critical analysis people start with the presumption that it's an object that's the size of an aircraft instead of it saying the simple fact. How many pixels across was it in the first video? The first actual raw video upload. It's like a 4K video. How many pixels? Okay. Now an object at a distance, or a bright object with a dark background, the imager will decide that even if it's only a pixel across, it'll make it 1 or 2 pixels long, and if it's in motion, it will then compression blur it into more than 1 pixel, but it'll be longer. If something's moving at 9,000 miles an hour at a distance to that ridgeline, if you didn't look at it on the map, it traversed this ridgeline at how fast? 40 miles an hour, if it's really that far away. The presumption that it's far away instead of near the camera assumes it's large instead of it's small. Once it gets to the camera and goes past it and does not create a supersonic boom, why would you assume that? It has to be small. Even a bullet this big makes a supersonic crack. You idiots. They didn't hear anything? Why is the audio muted? It always records audio. That's something I know about these freaking obnoxious drone footage recordings. because the audio didn't include a supersonic crack or any sound. Well, it's a mysterious propulsion system. That means you're saying it's a UFO instead of saying, I don't know what it is, I'm not saying it's aliens. Yes, you are. You're assuming some sort of exotic form of propulsion or exotic form of matter, antimatter, dark mercury, red mercury, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It's a bug. It's the most likely scenario. It completely accomplishes this. You can look up hundreds of videos. If you want to look them up, there was a playlist. I can't find it anymore. I made one. Of bugs flying past cameras looking like something big with audio. But anyway, if it traverses in 3 frames and it's at minimum size, the size of a VW bug, it would be going at a high enough speed that it would make a sound of some sort. If it was traveling at 9,000 miles an hour, how many? That's over Mach 9, that's like Mach 10. It would definitively make a supersonic crack, even if it was an insect. Therefore, it has to be going less than 1,000 feet per second. Because there's no supersonic crack, because they said they didn't hear anything, we have to start with the assumption it's going under 1,000 feet per second. At 1,000 feet per second, in 1/10 of a second, which is 3 frames, if that was at 30 frames a second. Alright? This distance here, if that's less than 100 feet. That makes the object about 4 feet across, maybe the size of a Hugo, or some other, like a bus. Okay, why didn't they see it? Oh, because the camera is special, it can see invisible spaceships. We didn't see anything. You didn't see a fucking VW bus fly past you at just under Mach 1, so it doesn't make a supersonic crack. Why in fuck are you people assuming that it has to be a spaceship, but lying about it? Why are you assuming it's traveling over the speed of sound for some fucked up reason, which creates 100 other problems for you to process? Why are you ignoring that the majority of the imaging that shows it as anything other than a couple of pixels across is literally 3 frames out of the entire video? That's the downloaded one I got. That's at 30 frames a second according to its own data file. Or was it 15? If it's at 15 frames a second, if you're going to go there, that means it's going slower, not faster. Or if it's at just under 1,000 feet per second, it's even bigger? Or is it smaller? If it took longer to travel that way, you'd have to make it... It's 1/10 of a second approximately, and it's covering an area which would make it at minimum the size of a bus, and it would have flown right past them, because the angle would make it that way. As for the assumption, oh, it's a pinpoint out here, it has to be at the farthest point. Why? It was the drone was flying towards whatever it is. Yes or no? You have to post that below. Here is the question and answer session at the 13-minute mark that I've wasted all your time with. 1. Was the object moving towards the drone? The answer has to be yes. I mean, you aren't going to lie about that, right? Next, are you presuming it came from the farthest location instead of simply not assuming anything? Next, are you willing to acknowledge that if it made a supersonic crack going below the speed of sound, it would make a noise? Are you willing to acknowledge that if it didn't make a noise, it has to be traveling less than 1,000 feet per second? Are you willing to acknowledge that if it was recorded properly at 30 frames a second, and we don't have any compression blurring, that it was less than about 1/10 of a second for 3 frames where it shows up on screen? It's actually 3 or 4, maybe. That means it's slower by a long shot. But let's just say it's 1/10 of a second. That's 100 feet traversed, coming at this camera that's flying, that can be disturbed by airflow. It has to be going under the speed of sound, right? Acknowledge. It has to be 3 or 4 frames, maybe? And it has to be 100 feet along of distance, which makes it about the size of a Hugo? But they didn't see or hear a damn thing, so it has to be magic camera moment. These are your problems. These are the hurdles you create by saying 9,000 miles an hour. It has to be coming from a long distance. The rule in ufology is to create a fantastical claim that people ignore because it's completely batshit insane. Do you acknowledge that part of the propaganda to this? No one under these people, not one of them, wants disclosure. They want it covered up. It was a bug. It came towards the camera was going towards it. If it had hit the camera, it would have been more entertaining. And there are literally hundreds of videos you can look up where things are flying by cameras. Other times they say they're sprites or ghosts or whatever. This is bullshit. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck.